regards to your assessment of the Penn State effort, just because you could spin that both ways. Penn State put on a flurry that was basically gifted to them, in my view, aside from the one substantial drive of 75 yards gifted to them by Ohio State. The Buckeyes then kind of put it to a halt, especially that second time around when they gave up the football and the defense said, enough's enough, field goal, that's it. And then they took control back. But you can put the positive spin on that Ohio State dominated for 55 minutes of the game, or that Penn State hung in the game and it was only 28-17.
Well, I think that's what a competitive football game looks like. We had not seen anything quite like that for Ohio State this season yet. I mean, the Wisconsin game was a 3-point game early in the third quarter, and then Ohio State drove down and scored. Chase Young created back-to-back turnovers, and Ohio State scored after that. Next thing you know, it goes from 10-7 to 31-7 in that game. In this case, the Avalanche kind of went the other direction. They got up 14-0 at halftime. Could have been 21-0. They had the touchdown by Fields that was called back because of replay when it was determined that the ball had been knocked out before he crossed the plane of the goal line. And so 14-0, they drove down, scored to start the second half. It's 21-0. And you think that this thing is completely in the bag. The defense, as you said, gave up a 75-yard drive, which during the course of that, I believe is when the quarterback got knocked out, and the other quarterback, Will Levis, came in and finished that drive. And then obviously it was Dobbins and Fields losing fumbles on the next two possessions. And as you said, Penn State got 10 points out of those. They could have tied the game 21-21. But the defense got a great stop there to force a field goal in the second one, 21-17. And it was a little uneasy there going to the fourth quarter at Ohio State. It was not in the bag. The Buckeyes even had to punt the ball away one time, and so Penn State had the ball with a chance to go ahead. But the Buckeyes eventually regained control. Justin Fields hit the big pass over the top, back shoulder pass rather, to Chris Olave for the touchdown. 28-17, and then the defense slammed the door on them 3 times there at the end with the Justin Hilliard interception, a couple sacks in there, one by Young and another by Browning, and the Buckeyes were able to get away with a 28-17 win in a competitive football game. That's what it looks like, and Ryan Day talked about it last week, in a talent-equated game where both teams have 4- and 5-star players. That's what it looks like. And people will say, Ohio State gifted it to them. Well, Penn State also forced those fumbles. I mean, it wasn't like nobody was around and they just fumbled a snap and it went the other way. It was Penn State made plays on the football to knock it away. And, Micah Parsons knocked one away from J.K. Dobbins. It's just the way that football is. I mean, when you got like athletes and strength on strength, that's what it looks like. So I didn't have a big problem with it. Ohio State got it out the win, and a huge win for them, their best win of the season, and clinched the Big Ten championship. And we can get into it a little bit more, just this dynamic, clinched the championship game appearance, this dynamic that where you're going next week to play for the conference championship, and yet you've got this game in the middle here against Michigan, your rival, that doesn't have any impact on the Big Ten at all, but could actually have impact in terms of the national championship picture, the playoff, and certainly with bragging rights and recruiting and everything else that goes along with the rivalry. Ohio State's just dominated Michigan for years. That now we're into this kind of it's a strange place we're in right now this week, kind of a lame duck Michigan game that still means quite a bit.
Steve, it's an important distinction that you make on turnovers, and I try to analyze that myself when I see turnovers in a game, whether they were forced by the defense, good defensive play because good defenses take the ball away, or just gifts in which, the quarterback and the running back ran into each other and the ball was on the ground and the defense just happened to jump on it. Kevin, your thoughts on Penn State, because as I teed up for Steve, you can spin it a positive way or a negative way, because Buckeye fans are now expecting Ohio State to beat everybody by 40, and they basically controlled the game statistically, but had that flurry of mistakes, which kept Penn State in the game.
Yeah, I mean, they held Penn State to 227 yards, 99 on the ground, a $128 in the air, when neither Sean Clifford nor Will Levis were particularly impressive in the air. Will Levis in a little bit of a different dynamic. It's much more of a bulldozing type of running quarterback that it took Ohio State a little bit of time to adjust to. And yeah, I agree with Steve in saying that the turnovers were their takeaways. Ohio State just didn't put the ball on the ground and say, here you go. Penn State took it away, but yeah, Ohio State definitely did dominate 55 minutes or so of that. And I think something else that's troubling too, it only committed. There was the Thayer Munford hold that really set them up out of the field. Fields ends up getting sacked after that. In the final minute of the half, there's also I think it was like an illegal formation call, something along those lines, that ended up leading to another Justin Fields sack. And then Ryan Day's like, all right, that's it. We're done. We're going to go to the locker room at that point. So you could sit there and say that a couple penalties could have cost Ohio State 14 points at that point, plus the 7 they left on the field with the Fields fumble on the 8-inch line, more or less, that went into the end zone for the touchback. So, I mean, if the ball bounces a couple different ways, we're talking about a 42-7 win or something. Ohio State hasn't been tested at that point. And, fans may be a little bit happier, but we don't know as much about this team at that point, how they're going to respond to adversity, because I guarantee you nobody's going to go through 15 games without some adversity. So best to face that now, getting ready to go into this stretch of potentially 4 games. We know what the next 2 are: Michigan and then the Big Ten championship game, and then let the chips fall where they may then.